The more I try to prepare something, the less I give a shit. So, how about I just go ahead and do it, eh? So then, what's this all about? Well, you know, in this game, we have this thing called a pretender design screen. Yes. And within it, we have choices that we can make that determines how our nation will play once we get past it. Isn't that right? Yes. And you know what else there is? Besides choices, there's trash, 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 trash. A very bad choice. Absolute overpriced trash. Still overpriced and trash. There's bad choices, bad choices. Also, this one has a fucking cloud of A and cold damage, so he might just kill someone. Fun fact. This guy is fucking garbage, because he does not have that. This guy is just complete fucking trash. Also, he patrols very well. I guess that's something, question mark. This guy is technically a funny one, because he has corpse eater, which means that if you feed him lots and lots of corpses, he will eventually accrue something like 700 base HP. At which point you could call this guy not complete garbage. But that's neither here nor there, because that takes a lot of time. And time is money. This guy would be okay. But see, he's kinda expensive. And this guy, he's almost cool, but he's still expensive. And then we have trash, 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 trash. Everything here is so fucking bad. It's crazy. And then you have a bunch of choices that aren't complete garbage. And why do I call all these things garbage? Well, see. Here we see some decent paths. You can take a moderately okay bless with it. I don't know. Something like this, question mark. But then the question becomes, okay, so... Alright, let's get a bunch of sacreds produced. Oh wait, what's that? You want more than 7 sacreds? I hope you're prepared to pay for it, because it ain't gonna be cheap. Meanwhile, you take a boy like this, you slap on a teeny tiny bless, I don't know, like so, and what do you know? We can get a lot of sacreds and a lot of scales. Wow. And thus we get the conundrum. So then, what is and is not a good pretender? Question mark. And if you were to be fancy, you'd prepare a bunch of examples and all that shit, but the more I try to think of them and attempt to implement something, the more I just don't give a shit. So, pardon me, but I can't just do that. Sorry. So then, I think we'll look at, I don't know, Fomoria. Because I just messed around with it. It was pretty funny. So then, what does a nation like Fomoria have? It has inconspicuous sacred dudes that are commanders, have a lot of HP, good stats, high strength, decent magic resistance. They even come with natural protection after all. You could say they're almost decent. Inconspicuous, indeed. They have dirt cheap mages that come with Water 1, Earth 1, and Nature 1. They also always have Air 1, I'm sure there's nothing you can do with all of these paths. Yes. I'm sure that there's absolutely nothing that you might think of doing with those paths. I mean, who would ever do such things with those paths? No, that's silly. Then we have your boy, the Thunderstrike spammer. I mean, the usual suspect for combat mage from this nation. Some people give him precision blesses. That's very funny. Otherwise, he has worse paths than even this guy. Because Death One is pretty poopy. And why is it poopy? Well, I'll tell ya. Air Death is technically not a complete trash cross path. However, the relevant spells within this path are Wailing Winds and Wind of Death. Not within the path. No, sorry, cross path. They are those two spells I just mentioned. But the important part is they are base death, not base air. Which then means that to cast them you'd have to have a high death path. And the air path doesn't really matter. Instead, this guy has Death 1 and Air 2. So all he can really do that's incredibly useful is summon air elementals, which are actually pretty overpowered, even in Magic Explodes, where we buffed the shit out of magic. Fun fact. And I would not cast Thunderstrike with him. That's not what he's good for. At worst, you could look at him and say, you know that inconspicuous guy I talked about earlier? Well, he's sorta like that guy. He has less HP, but at least he can teleport with a certain funny spell that surely nobody misuses. So yes, most of what this guy would end up doing is teleporting and summoning air elementals to kill dudes. Or maybe, if you're gonna be very degenerate and, I don't know, do something stupid, like this or something, where you give your guys a nice old stat bless, because you're just feeling generous, and then you don't really need a lot of Dominion, because let's be honest, not everyone requires high Dominion to be effective, and we're most relying on commanders anyhow, because infantry have this very specific downside. It's called they can't hold 4 turns and receive 6 different buffs. It's quite a problem. You can solve it by using 12 mages, but usually we don't do that. Because using 12 mages eats into a lot of turns recruiting these guys, and well, that's no good. So yes, usually, here we go. Usually you just summon elementals and like kill raiders with it. And by raiders I mean like heavy squads of, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know, man. Just something you'd wanna drown in elementals. What you do not do is use these guys to teleport into enemy lands and then be real fucking funny and think you elfed someone because you took 15 provinces in 1 turn. When really all you did was take 15 provinces and held like 4 of them the next turn and lost a bunch of mages and 30-ish air gems just for the teleports. So yeah, maybe just spend the air gems on more elementals or something. We have this guy who is pretty bad. Good stats. but he's pretty bad. Does have the advantage of being stealthy though, which is alright if you wanna wanna play that game. Then we have your main mage, the handy dandy Nemedian sorceress. That's cap only, but not slow to recruit. Has good pass. What a nice mage. Then we have the boys that forge your air boosters, and that's the nation. Now, of course, you could do like, oh, look at me, I'ma go down conjuration and rely on Morrigans and shit, but honestly, that never happens. So what choices does a nation like Fomoria have that either does something very silly with their commanders and pretends to play a mass thug style, which, by the way, I have in fact done, and it's something that I would not recommend you do unless you enjoy things like doing this and this and this and just God knows what the hell is happening. I'm recruiting mages well in advance. I'm forging things. I'm giving out items. I'm just all over the place. Don't fucking do this shit. Oh, and why should you not do that? 'Cause that turn is pretty complicated, yeah? Well, imagine doing that with like 10 times in a row. Non-stop, yeah. Takes a toll on you, it does. So yes, I would not recommend the mass thuggy boys that are stat/resistance blessed. It's cute on a nation like Therados or something where you can just casually fucking all resist it up and say fuck you to the world. In fact, let's just see that on. Actually, no, I think it's like this. Oh, yeah. Ooh, pardon me. It takes a while, isn't it? Yep, that's a lot of blesses to put on a fucking full resist thug. So you do that shit, and then you just fucking dump everything. And then you get luck 3, magic 3. Isn't that nice? It's very, very cute. Alright, you even get to walk fast in snow. That's very nice. Very useful. And so you gear these things up. You have awe. It's pretty nice. You give them boots of the spider eventually. Stack up defense. Watch them go ham on people. Oh, and fun fact, if you give them a burning pearl and a dancing trident, which these guys can make for cheap, then if you stack up some defense and set boots of the spider, you'll have very nice defense thugs that repel a lot of attacks, and they can't be held down. It's pretty nice, yes, and they're magic resistant, so like good luck killing them. But that's Therados things. If you want to play that way, well, you signed up for it. Let's just put it that way. Back to Fomoria, yes? Alright. So we have a trash troop, but it can go underwater and take some provinces. I guess that's okay. It's nothing special. These guys are... Well, I'll give you a little secret. These guys are actually pretty damn good. People call them bad, but they're cheap. They're tough. They take hits, alright. They even repel with their fucking length 4 spears. And they're honestly pretty decent. So fuck the people that say this sacred is trash. No, it's actually a good sacred. Just you're not really a nation that needs this sacred. Then you have these boys. They're pretty fun. Most importantly though, they have low protection pretty good stats. They don't do a lot of damage, but they are sort of in the same tier as your usual sacreds. In fact, these guys are the exact same unit, but with one more defense than attack and one more strength. So you could call these guys Numidian warriors, and you wouldn't even be wrong. But the important part here is that these guys, there's no recruitment limit on them. You can make a fuckload on them. And they're size 3. And what does that mean? That means there's 3 in a square. 3 in a square that you can, I don't know, cast quickness on an area of effect 1 spell. Yes. And then you just buff them up to hell and watch them go to town. It's pretty funny. Then you have some half-decent giant infantry. The problem here is that they don't wear hats and thus suffer from the same problem as yes, that this yes, where you can make dudes with stone birds. I would never wager what nation could possibly do such a thing and roll their fucking infantry. No, that never happens. Never even once. These guys are actually surprisingly decent. Very cheap, and most importantly, unlike silly little elven boys, they can siege like crazy, and they don't cost the earth. You can spam them out with their non-existent resource and rec point cost. And unlike normal militia, they can actually move a couple of provinces sometime. And what remains then? We have your boy the Fairbolg, that dude that comes with a spear and has decent stats, and he even has a javelin. Very cool. It's almost like this guy, but without a hat, because these guys are what we call men without hats. And then we have the same boy, but he has an axe, which means that he has one less defense for reasons unknown, but he does. The notable thing here is that this guy hits a bit harder than this guy. So if you want to do a lot of damage to low protection dudes, these guys aren't actually all that bad. Now, it's not often you need to take troll provinces, but it does happen from time to time. And then you have these dudes that are fucking trash. Don't even bother thinking about them. So, with all of this shit in mind, between mages, nice magic axes, or funny spells should I say, you can shit out air elementals. It's pretty nice. Very cool. Would recommend. What does a nation like this need? And I'll give you a spoiler here. This nation expands very easily due to having decent infantry that's not terribly hard to produce. So what sort of pretender would this nation need? Well, some people for some reason claim that you could take a fucking bow and go ham on people. La 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 la. Do I want to do that? Question mark. Is that what I want to do with my life? And all I would say to that is no. Because see, I'm not sure what even to call them, but people claim that things like this, when they have high earth, high protection and all that shit, and regeneration, blah blah, blah blah blah, that these things are somehow hard to kill, and I would heartily disagree. All it takes is, yes, I actually prepared a funny example here. All it takes is making a little stack like this. Yes, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mages, and 3 little boys here. And what do these boys have? They have your boy the Great Sword of Sharpness, a very nice weapon. Can recommend. And so what do? Well, we fluff him to hell. As you'd expect from someone like me. We just fluff him straight to hell. And what happens then? Well, they do 40 AP slash damage with quickness. And I can tell you for a fact that if, in this particular example, these things did not exist and distract like crazy, if they did not exist and instead we had to face this thing, which is your boy, the Fortitude Region Dracone, very, very powerful, yes, capital. Then if all we had to face is this guy and a bunch of PD, without these guys like taking 5 fucking years to kill, and distracting the guys that were supposed to kill this guy, then what would happen is, as you may notice, the luck ethereal Cornude nobles don't exactly take any shit from these guys without magic weapons. In fact, it doesn't seem like they really care. The only thing that kills the dudes here is the obvious counter to any and all luck abuse, which is called something that does not respect luck. Your boy, poison damage. What a coincidence that you put poison resistance in your bless, so that you can throw it on these guys that are sacred and fluff him to hell and just send him in to kill this dude. Yeah, you see those damage numbers? That's some real damage. Ugh. Let's scroll down. There we go. A casual 23 damage. Yes. It's gonna keep on happening. Twice per turn from 3 guys. And what happens then? Well, I can tell you one thing. It's gonna do a bit more damage than 33 HP per turn. It's just that it just so happens that this guy is a fucking pussy. Saw his fucking army crushed and then went, oh shit, I'm out of here. Bye-bye. But this is just an example from an Awake Research Rush build that I've been recently pushing around, where you casually produce a lot of fucking astral dudes to fluff some troops and just destroy everything. Well, these guys, you can fluff them too. And then Awake expanders that you have invested entirely too many fucking pretend and design points into, yeah, they're not worth anything. 'Cause if it didn't fucking run away, it would have been dead. And the only reason things didn't go down that route in the first place is because there was a funny little 4 to 5 turn distraction caused by sacreds that not every nation happens to have. It's actually quite a minority of nations that has flyers so early in the game, because we're talking like turn 15-ish, where you can realistically gear dudes up like that and fluff them at the same time, because it does take rolling a few randoms to do that, but it's possible. And when it happens, well, that's when you actually strike them and kill them. And I'll remind again that despite the expander surviving, I'll just repeat the fucking army performance of these guys. And that's just 30 dudes. None of these guys dented them at all. It takes hard hitters with magic weapons, and even then, if you were facing those, you'd just put cheat fate on them instead of body ethereal. The reason they die is because this guy has poison damage in a cloud, which means that he just fucking murderizes anything without poison resistance. So then, back to Fomoria, eh? So instead of a wake expander that protects your territory, except against people that ask, I don't know, people like me questions on the internet about, hey, how the fuck do I kill a piggy like that? And I'll gladly answer and give him the setup. And boom! The expander is dead and your nation has fallen. Isn't that a shame? So then, what would I recommend instead of that? Well, one funny thing you can do is that you can do something like this. What's this, you ask? Well, it's a rock that can teleport. Yes, that's right, it can teleport. And what then? Why do I spend 40 design points on a single path? Well, see. That's because there's a funny little overpowered spell in vanilla. I think they call it Foul Vapors. Yes. A spell that creates a bunch of poison clouds all over the battlefield. Yeah. And what do you think a big rock like this is? Ah, yes, that's right. It's something that takes a while to kill. So, what do you think happens if it sits there for 30 turns with a bunch of poison emanating from it? It's gonna clear an army, and presumably you can't really anticipate that a big rock is gonna teleport onto you. So it'll work in a ditch, and that's all it's supposed to do, because the rest of it is, I'ma just fucking crank these things up. Boom. Isn't that sweet? Yes, it's okay. Personally, I like dropping some points in misfortune, but Fomoria is rather unusual in that, just like a nation such as Hinnom, it has great heroes, and thus luck is in fact a consideration. Well, that's another choice. I can't really show you another sort of type of pretender, because as you might notice, there's a distinct lack of pretender choice here. I don't get many paths to pick and choose from. However, I can do a live demonstration of a concept, but I too decided to pioneer at some point when I was tired of messing around with bless combos. And yes, if you ever stumble upon things that look a little bit like this, yeah, if you're familiar with that thing, yep, that's me. It's your boy, actually. Speaking just to that, there's also something a bit worse than that. It's called, yeah, good old boy Mictlan, that nation that doesn't respect having trash scales. Well, yes, what do you think you can do with Mictlan? You can do the exact same thing as was done there, except you can make it way the fuck worse, because you can do this. And then you can put on Fate Weaving, which is low-key an extremely powerful bless. And then you just go to town. Undying points are actually very valuable with regen, fortitude, and blood bond. Because dudes like this, they can't take much punishment, but if you add extra fake HP to them, they can stand there and take it for much longer. So, besides, as I was about to go ahead and demonstrate, I got a little sidetracked with bless combos today. Sorry. Another thing that I decided to mess around with is, why spend so many points on hell blesses when you could, I don't know, take a bless that makes your sacreds expand a little better. And then, if you look at your nation, fire and air, fire and air, fire and air, astral. Interesting. What does fire and air mean? It means that you have a power spike at evocation 2 in sulfur haze, which is a spell just like, yeah boy, freezing mist. It's pretty good, yeah. It does the exact same thing, except it does poison damage and fire damage instead of cold damage. And it's also one of the reasons that poison resistance is one of the very best things you can get in this game, because there's a lot of poison cloud thingies. From sulfur haze to poison cloud, the actual spell to snake bladder sticks, a construction 4 nature 1 item that anyone has access to, because nature 1 indies aren't all that uncommon. Ha ha ha. Yeah, that's why poison resistance is a good bless, because otherwise you're gonna die horribly, as you noticed from my luck ethereal Carnute nerve was just fucking keeling over the moment the dragon breathed on them. But not before they got murderized. No, not before they murderized the enemy army, though. That's an important note. Poison doesn't magically kill things, no. It just makes things die afterwards, and it would be a shame if those Carnute nobles, well, they were just expendable resources that cost 450 gold. And are mass producible. But yes, sulfur haze, good spell, pretty nice, does a fuckload of fatigue damage, does a lot of fucking poison damage. It's really nice, and you have tons of mages that can cast it. Because here's a fun fact for you about this Naba nation. It has this capsite that gives 100 gold that scales with scales. Wow. Surprising, I know. And their labs cost 250 gold. Some people claim this is overpowered. You must nerf that. Oh my, the world is ending. And no, I find it a very nice national feature, because unlike every fucking other nation in the game, they get a foreign recruit mage that's actually worth a shit. He's not master of the way. He's actually pretty good, yes. He doesn't require temples that get destroyed the moment someone raids your province. It's pretty nice. They have the choice to destroy your lab, but they're not always gonna take it unless they're really fucking mean and just do it. 'Cause they wanna do it. So then, you have these mages, and they don't cost a lot, but they take a long time to recruit. What does that mean? That means that you need a lot of fucking labs outside of forts to make a reasonable quantity of those. And that's exactly what this fucking capsite provides you the opportunity to do, combined with the reduced lab cost. It diversifies the nation from the rest of the fucking nations that don't get such funny features, yes. So then, between sulfur haze and those funny mages and funny national features that make it something funny, you have these guys. They're pretty okay. What's important is that they come with mirror image, because that's what glamour does in combat. On the tactical map, they just make you invisible, in that even if you're not sneaking around, you can't be seen on the tactical map. But in combat, it is quite literally mirror image. And what that means is that if you're an R1 mage like this guy, or even this guy, there's a 1 in 3 chance of mirror image failing to negate a melee attack. On an R2, that would be 1 in 5. And R3 gets +2 to that number, and it goes on and on like that. But for units without any air magic, which is either a unit like this that has glamour, or even some dude like this that gets an item that casts mirror image on him, units without air paths have a 1 in 2 chance of negating melee damage. Now, that may not sound like much, but it's actually pretty decent on units with reasonable stats. And if you wanted to really crank up expansion, you'd do something like this, where you take cold resistance, because freezing mist is pretty damn spooky. Then you'd make, then you take very high dominion, because one notable thing about these guys is that they take little resources and very little recruitment points, so you can crank those dudes out. Magic 3 is a pretty nice scale, so we will take that. Yes, thank you very much. And then we can be real tryhards and just go misfortune 3, fuck that shit. And there you have it. A pretty nice build, if I do say so myself. I mean, I can demonstrate it right here. What's the big idea? Oh, this is a build we call imprisoned expansion scales. It's a bit heavy on the fucking bless, because I'll just immediately demonstrate a fucking cheaper variant. You can look at a nation like EA Arco, who have these guys that I demonstrated in combat not too long ago now. Yeah, these guys, they have length 4 spears, thus they can repel indie spears with their own fucking lances that are actually spears, but who the fuck cares? The point is, they can repel, and that means that we can take a guy like this and just slap some attack skill on. This raises them up to 16 attack skill. Then we can make them hit a little harder, because they don't really hit that hard. And the point of reinvigoration reduces the amount of fucking fatigue they accrue every turn from 5 minus 1, so 4 per turn, to 5 minus 2. That's 3 per turn. Thus it takes a while for the stat penalties from fatigue to accrue onto our precious high stat sacred. And then, if we really want to splurge out, we can add Blood Surge to that, but it's not strictly necessary. And so we just crank up them scales, and we don't actually need a whole lot of Dominion here, because they are rather heavily recruitment point capped. And even if we take Order 3, we can't really bypass that. We can try. But it's not necessary to splurge out on Blood Surge. And what that allows you to do is to, well, pick and choose what you want to do. You can take Misfortune 2 instead. You can also take Temperature 0. And, in fact, well, it doesn't really fucking matter. I was gonna demonstrate it with a entirely different nation, wasn't I? Yes, I believe so. This is what happens when you don't prepare anything, and I can say sorry, but not sorry, because I can't fucking prepare anything. So then, yes, back to this nation. Well, mirror image. The thing that negates melee damage, yes. It's a good effect. But one notable thing is, mirror image, if it fails to negate melee damage, only pops if you actually take damage from what happened. It only pops if you take damage after it fails to negate the damage. So like, if you take damage, it fails to negate it, but something else comes in and says, nah, you didn't actually take damage, you're good. Then it doesn't pop and still continues to negate 50% of net attacks successfully. Why is that important? Well, it's important because there's a certain spell in Alteration. Cheat Fate. And what does Twist Fate do? Well, we can read the Bless description if we so desire. The first successful attack against blessed units will be negated by the Twist Fate effect. What does that mean? It means that we have mirror image that negates 50% of the attacks that actually manage to do damage, and then we have Twist Fate that goes in and says, the first time mirror image fails to negate an attack, the first time we fucking lose the coin toss, that's fucking, yeah, that'll be good enough. Don't you have coins lying around? The first time we lose the coin toss, and as you might know with coin tosses, they can sometimes be pretty funny and succeed several times in a row. The first time we lose one, Twist Fate negates that, and we still keep the coin toss alive. That's very nice. In fact, it's so nice that what you should do on this nation is spam out the astral dudes. Because you'll need them to fluff up these guys. And so what you do is, I don't know. You don't even technically need a prophet, but you might as well do it. Fuck it. I'm just gonna be lazy. And play real fast like. So like, what the hell do you do? What you do is that you do fucking normal things. Yeah, yada yada. And then you expand like fucking crazy. I don't think you should smack into heavy cavalry immediately. I say yes, I immediately smack into another province with heavy cavalry. But yes, what you do is that, thanks to your nasty bless that's imprisoned and gives you nice scales, you have these guys, and then they turn into fucking Supermen, and then they go and fucking smash. In fact, let me speed up the process so that we can just go faster. You may notice the blinking has sped up, and that's no coincidence. It is in fact faster. So yes, we just crank out sacreds and slowly work our way to Alteration 2. And what do you know, we expand pretty well. Surprise, surprise. And if you feel like it, you can add a few extra sacreds and, I don't know, fucking do nothing for the time being. just keep on cranking out more sacreds. That's why we got so many holy points, after all. So, we combine forces and then we just keep on expanding like fucking crazy. It's a good life, I'll tell you that much. Indeed. And by the way, if you don't know this shortcut, it's Control M. I'm not really gonna play this very well because I don't really care. I'm gonna use these guys as fucking trash to take the heavy cavalry. And yes, as expected, the Superman just go in, fucking kill everything. That's exactly what a bless like this does. It just makes your sacreds expand like crazy and costs nothing. It's like, if you've ever played a hell boss, you know that you expand like crazy, except this is a non-incarnate hell bless, in that it expands very well. Wow, would you look at that? It's almost time to get Cheat Fate going. In fact, but we don't quite reach it, and that's the problem with builds like this and every other low tempo build. We don't really hit power spikes very well, and that's one of the funny things, because you hear the most dastardly things on the internet, and what I had as a counter argument against awake research rushes where you just take the world by storm in a fucking death spiral where all the troops you lose are expendable, and when you lose troops you lose upkeep, thus you can spend more, and how you lose the troops is that you raid like fucking crazy, so you have like 6 mages here. You can each send those mages out with a little squad of dudes and just take provinces. Maybe even just 2 mages if you want to play it safe. And then instead of taking 1 province, you could say, I have 6 dudes here, no, 6 commanders here, mages. I can take this province, and this province all at the same time. And then, when they are each in those provinces, you congregate together into 1 province to defend against wannabe defenders that want to reclaim their lost land. And then you either win or you lose, and if you lose, you lost upkeep, which you can spend on buying more troops. Isn't that nice? So yes, back to the counter argument. You hear the most dastardly things, and one of the funniest thing was that it's no big deal that you lose a bunch of early super power spikes by not going with an awake researcher on the nations that can use those. Not every nation has such power spikes. It's no big deal, because you'll have that with an awake expander and you'll be like much bigger by whatever turn. Whatever. But see, the thing that argument doesn't... No, the thing that's wrong with that argument is that I know how regular builds play, and it relates to me talking about the problem with these fucking power spikes and how if you actually want to do things, you end up in the situation where you're not hitting those power spikes. Well, the thing is, I know how various fucking pretender builds play in this game. And the thing that's peculiar is that pretty much every pretender build in this game is low tempo to some degree. Even this build, if you take poison resistance and expand a little worse, the reason you would take poison resistance and expand a little worse with barely better scales, if not the same scales, is so that you can hit these early power spikes, and instead of sitting on your ass and waiting for those power spikes to happen, just like everyone else is doing, you hit those power spikes, and instead of like not wanting to expand into these lands because some other player controls them, you just fucking roll them because they're sitting there building forts and shit, and you've already been building forts like crazy, and you have the research, you have the power, and you just push like crazy. You can't really do that with an expander, because an expander not only has trashy scales compared to builds like imprisoned expansion scales builds, a pretty nice build, one of the few good ones. And this brings me to another point. One thing that people keep on fucking saying is that let me find the right pretender because it's iconic for that purpose. Whatever, dude, I'll just pick Vanheim. I know they have it. One thing people keep on claiming is that, wow, dude, rainbows are so OP. Fucking OP, dude. They can, like, pick a very good bless and shit, and then they are unstoppable. Well, see, the problem is, it's not that rainbows are somehow inherently terrible. No, they are what I personally would classify as not trash, in that you could do worse. You could pick this. Overpriced garbage, yes, you could pick that. And rainbows outcompete those. Because rainbows aren't actually trash garbage. No, they're okay, not terrible, in a sea of horrible, terrible trash garbage choices. And so it might seem that rainbows are somehow very powerful, OP, but see, this is where rainbows fall apart. You see how in all this time, yeah, imprisoned and all these paths, yeah, sure, you might have a bunch of design points that you could spend somewhere. Oops. The problem here is that the moment you press this button and then press it again and again and again and again and again to make sacreds, you might notice something. Is that suddenly your nice scales just vaporize. Boom! They don't exist anymore. And you do want these fucking candles, because without those you can't make these guys. Or whatever the fuck your nation has. And these guys, when you have this shit, yeah, these guys are pretty important. And so if you don't have these things, your entire fucking build goes to waste, unless you're a fucking degenerate that makes fucking mass thug builds. But I believe I already said something about those, didn't I? So the point here is that pretty much the same people that claim that expanders are a perfectly good choice for defending your property, hippity hoppity. The same people claim that rainbows are somehow overpowered, despite, I believe, this not being the case. Because rainbows are actually pretty trash garbage compared to, I don't know, doing silly things such as, or let's see. In fact, fun fact about that Devin, he is the don't require much of a bless. Any fucking cheapo bless build that expands well has lots of these things and pretty much always comes on a fucking immobile of some sort. Yeah, those builds, they perform better than the rainbow dudes. Because here's another fun fact. Having lots of paths on your pretender does not translate into your pretender somehow being super useful. Because a pretender, and let's look at a fucking fairly late game. Your pretender has this very funny problem. If I can even find him. There he is. There he is casting one thing. That's the problem, dude. Your pretender can only do one thing per turn, and he has a lot of things that he can do. And there's not enough turns for him to do everything. And thus you should not expect that lots of paths translates into lots of usefulness. Because especially on an imprisoned pretender, he comes out at like turn 36 or something. And this game lasted until turn 50, where I ran out of steam and we just called it. So my pretender had lots of paths, and he had 14 turns to do something useful with them. Thus, a rainbow, especially an imprisoned rainbow, is not very useful compared to an immobile that just expands like crazy and has actually good scales. But both of these things are within the same low tempo category. Because what's funny is you can practice build orders and shit now. Because there's a high tempo game in town. It's called That Them There Awake Research Rushes. Where you make some fucking alright, decent, half elite national infantry you can crank out at any fort. You fluff them to hell with like luck ethereal or luck twist fate, what the fuck have you, and then you fucking raid like crazy and they beat up everything. You just fucking slaughter things. Akrema. There we have it. It's 14 heavy cavalry, 21 heavy infantry. That's like, I don't know, man, 30 PD or something crazy. They took no losses besides the mages. The only reason they took losses is because when you script attack, here, I'll just demonstrate it here. This is the fluffing script where I have them cast 3 spells, because this is cavalry. And it's only after the 3rd spell do I script attack. We'll see. The problem is the AI direction in this game is what we call a little autistic. And so when scripted to attack, it means attack! Fucking get him! Ah! Yeah, they rush into combat and they fight until the squad they picked a fist fight with either routes or is entirely wiped. So that means that they're just gonna fucking stand there and take hits forever until they fuck off or die, as they did in this case. So that's a bit of a problem. However, on a nation like LA Alm, where you can crank out astral mages out of every fucking orifice, yeah, that's not so much an issue to lose mages like that. And as I was just talking about, it's like 30 PD you're facing here, and you just rolled them without losses. Easy clap. And now, where was I? Ah, yes, the high tempo invasion. The imprisoned-scales build of Naba that I was initially talking about, where you had poison resistance, yeah, that one has some power spikes in Alt 2 and Evocation 2, which is very relevant when, as you might tell, research is very piddly. And so these very, very early spells can actually be reached within a comfortable amount of time, I guess you could call it that. You'll reach it year 1, let's put it that way. Alright, that reminds me what you should have done in this case. Just build a lab so you can make fucking hermits. And yes, that's right. I said I didn't prepare anything because I'm allergic to preparing things. Yes. So back to Fomoria, because we're gonna make a full fucking circle back about pretender types and shit. So what have we established so far? You can pick funny scales pretenders that serve a useful purpose, but are otherwise just a way to get a bunch of scales going. Because income and shit is pretty nice. Very cool. There are several instances of such things for many nations. Let's see if I can even remember this one. I think it goes something like that. And just fucking crank everything. Yeah, you can in fact do that. It's a pretty sweet build, if I do say so myself. The problem here is that these builds, and even builds like your boy the expansion-scales dude, where you take the world by storm with your sacreds, all of these builds have in common that your research is piddly and that the power spikes you hit are somewhat late in the game. And by late, I don't mean actually late in the game, like turns 25 onwards, no, but I'll just have a casual reminder from my little Marignon video where it's turn 7 and I'm already at alteration 3 and hitting evocation 3, which is to say that I have both luck and freezing mist on my sacred dudes that are cold resistant and thus can stand in freezing mist and just fucking do things. It's not a good demonstration, but I might just do it anyhow. Let's see if I have any sacreds lying around somewhere. There we have them. Now get back here. Actually, there we have it. This is a nice province. I'll just demonstrate it real quick. It's not gonna be a very pretty demonstration, not particularly useful or anything, but it'll be a demonstration nonetheless. It's quick, it's dirty, it's not useful, but I think it'll get the point across. Maybe. the problem with demonstrating things here like this is that it's not actually a good demonstration, because anyone can fucking trash indies, as I've shown in those expansion builds, but I'll just remind you that there are certain elite units and even most sacreds. And these guys actually have cold resistance. That's not a good thing to show. But there are certain elite units, even most sacreds and shit. These guys, for example, they don't have cold resistance. If you were to take this build with locked sacreds that have cold resistance and spam freezing mist, then here's with whatever cancerous bust they might have that does not include cold resistance, those very elite units, they would die horribly to this very same strategy I'm about to perform on some harmless indies. They don't deserve to die this horribly, but science demands sacrifice. Is that not true? Now, if you'll excuse me, this will take a little bit of setup. In fact, since we're talking setup, here's another fun fact. It's slightly more difficult to set up cloud spamming, because cloud spamming requires a certain timing on when you cast it in that. Oh shit, I forgot. I need fucking astral dudes and water gems and shit, so let me just make those real quick. Again, I did not prepare shit, so pardon me for taking a while. By the way, you can press the path key, I guess. W in this case for water, F for fire and shit. You can also do it with shift to transfer more gems. I just thought I'd let you know. So then, let's just stand here and look real pretty. Ah, good. I can even make more sacreds like that. Yes, okay. So then, to continue this scuffed demonstration, let's then sift through these guys. This guy has water paths. In fact, let me just select the water randoms that I did not pick out. Yeah, this particular setup does not have very many dudes with water randoms. What a shame, but whatever. So then, I'll just make the air guys do the deed. Oh well, fuck you too, game. Right then. Let's distribute some gems here. I think that'll be enough. And so the script we would use is obviously casting luck. We would also like to cast aim, so that we have slightly better precision. Then we may as well cast luck one. No, that's where I shouldn't fuck up. This is where we make a little fucking communion, and then we cast freezing mist and advance and cast. Alright. So then, this means that I need this guy to do the same, and this guy to do the same. This guy is unusual in that he actually has the right tools for the job. without any gems, so he shall be there. And yes, I like how it's displaying freezing mist as if we can in fact cast it, but we can't. Anyhow, this guy is also casting it. And now we need a couple of communion slaves in such a setup. And that means that we have these guys who are likewise casting luck. But instead of casting something else, then they become communion slaves. And so does this guy. And this guy just keeps on fluffing dudes, because it's important that we cover everyone with luck. This guy casts the divine blessing and just goes ham. And so let's see if I messed up scripting this shit or if it actually works. Let's let the carnage begin. Looks like it worked. So yes, the notable thing about early artillery power spikes like, I don't know, Alt 2 Evo 2 for Naba or Alt 3 Evo 3 for LA Madagon. Yep, there it goes. You can see it a little bit better here. And in fact, let me slow the game down so I can control the camera a little better. That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. And see, that's exactly what we hoped for. That the clouds would hit our sacreds. And the units fighting our sacreds, because our sacreds are lucked. These guys are dying in droves, except if I find an example here. I can find examples of, yeah, we'll just take this one. As you might see, the freezing mist is not doing damage to our sacreds, but the things that are killing our sacreds in droves are taking a while to do so because of luck. And so what happens is that we have these non-fucking cold resistant dudes who are fighting in these clouds, and if they don't die fucking horribly, then they get fatigued out very quickly. In fact, it's hard to show on these indies because they die horribly. But just trust me when I say that it does anywhere from 20 to 40 fatigue damage per turn, which makes it exceptionally effective, even against the most fucking cancer bless combos like Fortitude, Region, and Blood Bond. Because that bless is very, very strong if you fight them with physical damage, but it does nothing if your units can't actually kill anything because they're asleep. And with this much fatigue damage, they will be asleep, and then, even though these guys don't really have that much muscle, they will still fucking beat them up. Because you do a lot of crits and shit alongside just auto-hitting people that are asleep. Actually, it's not true that you auto-hit them, but since most things aren't super death ducks and shit, they have 40 defense or something, and 30 when they are asleep, then you pretty much just always hit them. And damage racks up so fucking fast that they will still die, despite that bless being cancerous. So yes, the reason a build like this is strong is because it works against those things. And it's turn fucking 8 when you could have done that if you had really practiced your build order and prepared all of that in advance. And so we come back to Fomoria once more. So then, what is a pretty cool build besides a bunch of scales? A pretty cool build is one where you rush some research, and It might seem a little silly, because you don't have astral, and I will agree, it's very fucking slapdash and kinda fucking fiddly, to be honest. But you can, in fact, do it, and it will be pretty effective, and, I mean, whatever. You just rush a bunch of research. And then what you do is that, let's find it. There we have it. Boink. I think I did it here, yes. Here we have our boys, the Nemedian warriors. And so what we do is that that's a lot of fucking buffs indeed. That's a lot of gems too, but we have gems. What we don't have is super units. So what do? We rush some research and we simply make our own super units. Let me find that. There we have one. If you do it well, you might even get this guy. There we have it. This is a guy on a research rush build. He's completely normal. He's just fluffed to hell. And what is not present here is another thing that you would do in this instance, because remember, each and every one of these guys has Air 1. And you may notice that this guy is enlarged, which gives him more HP and more damage. And what these guys then proceed to do is tear it up. But as I'm alluding to with Air 1, I mean, walking is nice and all that, but in Enchantment 3 there's this funny little spell that requires Air 2, but just like I'm casting quickness with Water 1 dudes, so can you cast an Air 2 spell that does not require gems to send a guy flying. And so you can use little squads of these guys just off in the corner somewhere, where you give them bark skin and you give them enlargement for the strength and you give them quickness for the fucking double attacks and the +2 to both attack and defense, and then you put gift of flight on them and tell them hold and attack rear, and so you get those fucking monster dudes just appear in the enemy backline. I'm sure they really appreciate that. And this is something that you can pull in a fucking research rush with okay scales. And on top of all that shit, you're still Fomoria, dude. You can do every Fomoria thing you'd want to do otherwise. You just rush some research and abuse fucking mass Firbolg druids to send dudes flying and buff them up to hell. When you're not just doing normal Fomoria things. And so what's the point here? The point is that, actually, let me see what turn that was. I think I was a little slow. Yeah, this was a very rough test game because I didn't practice the build order. Ha 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 ha. But you send those fucking nasty dudes, like, year 1, into the enemy backline. I mean, that's very nasty, and you didn't pay a lot to do it. Because it's not actually very expensive. It's something like this, if memory serves. Indeed, I think this might just be something close to it. Probably is it, in fact. So, you can do that and surprise enemies with fucking super fluffed dudes. Those are very buff And your pretender isn't terribly useless either, because he can make earth boots and thistle maces and crystal matrices and crystal coins and god fucking knows, dude. You can do a bunch of crazy shit with that guy. And this brings me then to... So, do you want to play a low tempo game with an awake expander that can be killed with, admittedly, not exactly a very light micro solution? However, I mean, if you go into this game not expecting to do micro, I think this is the wrong game for you, because it's fucking horrible in terms of micro. You go in, you fucking delete awake expanders by fluffing some dudes to hell with pretty much a non-existent ablaze and minimal research requirements. Actually, this has the debug mod, so I don't have the proper things researched, but suffice to say that I just need alteration 4 and construction 2 to fluff those dudes straight to hell. And that's how your pretender, your mighty pigus gets deletus. So you can play a low tempo build with an awake expander with trash research because you dumped a bunch of scales to afford it. And let's just say that it's not very pretty sometimes. And this is a cheap fucking expander build. They get much fucking worse, dude. They get much worse. It's like, wow, dude, insane. Such nice scales, dude. I'm sure you'll have plenty of units and that your pretender will protect you. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. You can make scales builds that are also somewhat low tempo. Or you can rush research and fucking go crazy on the world and take over the fucking place. The choice, as it stands, is yours. Do you wanna micro like crazy and have to do all that shit and play a very high tempo game while you fuck shit up? By the way, if you're curious what happened here, I'll show you. Actually, no. Let's crank up the speed again. So what happened is these guys went in and fucked shit up, and then these guys came in and decided that, hey, we're gonna pay you a visit. And see, as I mentioned, poison damage is one of the few ways you can bypass luck and ethereal. But fun thing is, the reason I lost this fight is not due to poison damage, but it's because I fought 2 battles in 1 turn, and these guys were already beat up to shit. And thus, some minimal damage taken results in an immediate rout, which would not happen if they were at full HP and would take like, I don't know, fucking 10 turns to die to a little bit of poison damage. 5 turns if it's a lot of poison damage. So yes, poison is the counter to fucking luck ethereal elite infantry abuse. The problem being, of course, that elite infantry is very spammable with the right pretender build, hee hee ha ha ho ho. And poison in fucking year 1 tends to be rather hard to come by. So good luck with that. Oh, and Not to mention the fact that, I mean, sure, you can make setups where you kill a bunch of dudes with poison, but that's a setup. While, as I mentioned previously, you can have a large stack of dudes just stacked up, like 6 mages, or even fucking 12, and like 60 units. That's a lot of units that are fluffed to hell. And then you can take this fucking mage stack and send 2 mages here, 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 and 2 mages here. Let's just say you came in to this province and all of this shit is not yours. You just split up everywhere and you just wipe the floor with whatever defenders are there that are not this specific fucking poison setup. And so you lose like the units you send into that defensive setup, and you still gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 provinces in a single turn. And you're continuously fucking cranking out more and more shit to send on these funny adventures. It's a high tempo build, and what's funny is that once you've established enough infrastructure on the front, you technically only need your cap for defensive purposes. And what that means is that you have a bunch of idle mages that are sitting in your cap because you don't currently need them, as your other forts are perfectly capable of defending your land against wannabe gangers, or I guess the other players that would like to cut down your size. And what that means is that instead of like expanding until turn 12 and then waiting for your fucking forts and labs to go up, and then finally sitting in place for a few turns to hit key research targets, you never did any of that shit because you were researching the entire time, dude. My research is great. And it's gonna keep on getting better because I have 50 tons of mages, and if I decide to just sit down here with my 12 mages, I can make a fucking lab and research right there on the field because I felt like it. So yeah, you can do some high tempo shit, and I'm sure there will be more innovations in this field because I just stumbled upon it thanks to a discovery I accidentally made during a test game, where I discovered that apparently you could just move forward to buff more. And it has spiraled out of control a little since then. Let's put it that way. So yes, that's your little incoherent breakdown of rainbows, who are not very good, but not complete trash fucking garbage, who are not a trap build that noobs recommend other noobs because they don't know better and don't fucking know the funny micro solutions you can make to such very common problems that result in a complete fucking wipeout, usually, because people who play with expanders usually use them a little questionably and a little confidently, shall we say, so that they don't have a whole bunch of army there that conveniently HP routes the pretender, and in fact most of the time the expander in question will be something like Bigus Pigus or the Great Wide Bowl, or let me whip out the other guy, Abyssia, and there we go, this guy. What they all have in common is that they are all berserkers, and that means that even if he brings some army that gets fucking wiped the fuck out by your fluffed troop stacks, The pretender goes berserk, and then he doesn't fucking run away. And then he gets fucking smashed by your point-fluffed greatsword dudes. And then you just wiped the fucking nation. What the hell, dude? That was so hard to do. I'm sure those fucking expanders are so threatening. So yes, besides rainbows were okay. Trash garbage that we don't discuss. Expanders that are not very good. Titans that are basically just fucking poo-poo. This guy might entice you with his fucking vine shield feature. It's pretty nice, but see, the problem is Titans are a defensive mechanism, as just like expanders, they cannot fight outside of their dominion, which is also why expander expansion ends at some point, because you can't just walk into enemy territory with them and expect them to live. With awake research rushing and the right nation, you can just keep on expanding while every other kind of build seems to just sit down, relax, and read a few books in anticipation for their power spike. And the reason you can just fucking expand is because you've already hit those power spikes. They're all waiting to hit. And more than just that, you're also researching future ones. Isn't that nice? Oh, and as a little bonus, I'd like to show a pretender tile that has not been mentioned yet. It's a Illwinter innovation, shall we call it. It's my response to, oh, what's that? You're gonna make my Ashdod builds have fucking trash income? And crank up their price? Is that what you're gonna do? Oh, okay. I'll just say, fuck you then. And do something very, very funny. What is that very, very funny thing, you ask? Well then, what could it be if not something we may actually call the good old non-incarnate rush. Looky that income. Dude. You make a build like this, you put it on decent fucking units, and you fucking smash. The problem, of course, being that these are all nice things, sure, but your research is fucking garbage, and your pretender is not gonna help with that. And meanwhile, what you could do is not go as ham on it as that, and instead, I don't know, dude, I'll just take this thing and do something a little bit more reasonable, like this. It's a minor stat bless. It's awake. What's this? You know what? Fucking dude. We'll take that. And we dump that stupid shit. Crank up a little production. Take death one, because we don't fucking care. And there you go. We have mildly stat blessed anakites. Yes, mildly stat blessed. And then we're researching with our awake pretender that doesn't have incarnates. No, but we have good research, and then we have our boy, the astral dude, the earth dude, who will slap, I don't know, etherealness. Fuck. Etherealness. Yeah, boy, Legions of Steel. Goddamn Strength of Giants. And then we're gonna recruit some indie shaman who will slap protection on our dudes. And even enlarge them, because we can turn gems into pearls and pearls into nature gems, which lets nature 1 mages cast nature 2 spells. How convenient. And in doing so, we actually accomplish slapping on this bless on our dudes. And not only that, well, we also slap on this bless. Convenient, is it not? Point fluffing is pretty good. And then, because we were very naughty and picked reinvigoration, eventually we're gonna reach the point where we can cast this thing, which is pretty nice. And it means that our giants that don't take very much fatigue between the 2 reinvigoration, we slapped onto them. And we can add this thing, which will also cause fatigue damage to everything else. And that thing our giants are mostly well resistant to. And so what happens is that we have stat-blessed giants that are enlarged and fight under fatigue damage conditions while taking very little fatigue damage themselves. That's pretty fucking handy, dude. So yes, that's just a little bonus for you people that listen to me all the way here, up here, while I'm losing my voice already. Anyhow, have a good one. I'm fucking tired. Bye, 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 bye.